Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Rookie Card Collector 123 video. Today's going to be a very special episode where I take you through my journey to reach what I believe was the pinnacle of my almost 50 years of baseball card collecting. The journey is going to take us from early 2004, about 20 years ago now, through 2014. So it's going to be about a 10-year period. I've entitled this video The Road to 310, How I Assembled the Most Diverse Baseball Hall of Fame Rookies Collection of All Time on a Budget. So this is going to be obviously during a period where I was putting together rookie cards, or as close to rookie cards as possible, for every member of the Baseball Hall of Fame. These members included not only the players, which some people try to do a collection of, but also the managers, umpires, pioneers/executives, and Negro League ball players. So these 310 individuals, that was the exact number as of 2014 when I finally reached the end of my collection there, before ultimately deciding to sell it off and move on to a different type of collection, which I'll cover one day in another video. But what I want to do today is I want to kind of give a high-level overview of my journey, what the thought process was as I went along, how I started, how things changed and progressed, and how I pivoted several different times over that 10-year period, how I came about to acquire all the cards and other baseball collectibles that I had in the collection, and then ultimately the decision to, like I said, move on, sell that collection, and move on to other very interesting endeavors as part of my nearly 50 years in baseball collecting. So the journey is going to start, like I said, early 2004. This time period, 2003, and the previous couple of years before that, I had gotten into the recently popular grading game. I was buying primarily either PSA 10s or BGS 9.5s, or preferably BGS 10s. That was my ultimate goal. And I was buying the current top rookie cards during that period. So some of the cards that were hot at that time in baseball was Ken Griffey Jr., Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire. Basketball was Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, of course. Football was Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Joe Montana, a lot of the guys that starred in the NFL during the 80s and 90s. So I was kind of doing all four sports. I wasn't doing very much hockey at all. So three sports, really. But baseball was always my primary focus. So one day I'm on eBay, early 2004 during the winter time, and I'm searching for my BGS 10 of those rookies that I just mentioned, plus others. And somehow through the eBay search engine, I come across a Bob Gibson 1959 Topps card. Pops up on my screen as one of the choices for me to look at. So I open it up, I take a look. I find out that based on the seller information, it's a rookie card of Bob Gibson. I knew who Gibson was. I never collected his cards. I never really collected a whole lot of vintage cards. Over the years, I had gone to flea markets and card shows, and here and there, I would pick up a Rod Carew, a Steve Garvey, Reggie Jackson, Roberto Clemente. So I had some golden age, a few 60s, more 70s Hall of Famers. So I knew who all these guys were, but I really was not an active vintage card collector. This Gibson kind of got my attention. It was $40. It was not graded. It was obviously not in great condition. I had some wear, but not horrible. And it got me to thinking, these BGS 10s for Kobe Bryant and Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa, guys like that I was collecting at that time. This is again around 2003, 2004. Those BGS 10s were selling in the 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 range. All these guys were still active players, and God forbid a career ending injury comes up, that could basically just kill the entire value of those cards, and I could be holding something that's almost worthless. So, like I said, got me to thinking, here's Bob Gibson, an all time great pitcher, retired already, 30 years ago. Nothing's ever going to change with his stats and his, MLB Hall of Fame election. Um, maybe it makes more sense for me to pursue these rookies rather than the BGS and PSA 10s that I was looking for guys that were playing in the 80s and 90s. So I took the first step and I went to the local, I guess it was a newsstand at that time, or magazine stand, and I picked up a current Beckett monthly baseball price guide. Not so much that I was so interested in the prices as much as what I wanted to do was I wanted to get a complete listing of what the Baseball Hall of Famer rookie cards were because I never researched that before, so I really had no idea on most of them. So I went to the store, I picked up the Beckett baseball magazine there, and started going through with a highlighter. And I went through beginning with 48 Bowman. That's where the main part of the guide started. There was a few sporadic sets in the earlier 20th century, like the Sporting News 1916, T206s from 1909 to 11, 1933 Gowdy, but it skipped a lot in between, obviously. And it got down to the real gist of it starting in 1948 with Bowman. So starting with 48, I took my highlighter and one by one I went through every RC designation in the magazine and I identified, and at this point I didn't know every player that was in the Hall of Fame. So a lot of times I had to go to my baseball encyclopedia or other resource, look it up every time an RC was there to see is this a Hall of Famer or not, because I had made a decision. I'm only going to collect the Hall of Famers. I'm not going to collect, rookie cards of everybody. So I started doing that. I highlighted starting with that 48 Bowman set and worked my way forward all the way through the current, early 2000s. Then obviously nobody at that point was in the Hall of Fame whose rookie card was anything later than maybe the early 1980s, which was kind of like, Wade Boggs or Ryan Sandberg. Those were the guys that were the latest Hall of Famers at that stage. So I worked my way through. I highlighted everything, did all that. Then went to my computer spreadsheet Excel program, and I, copied and made columns for all the rookies. I had the Beckett price guide had a high column and a low column based on condition. So like near mint was the high column, and lesser lower grade. I don't remember exactly what the condition was the lower column. So what I did was I went through and I now was at a job where I was making decent money, but I was not certainly not a doctor, lawyer, or salary anywhere near those kinds of numbers. So I had to be on a really tight budget for me to try to collect these rookies. So I started to formulate a plan. How am I going to be able to collect every post-war Baseball Hall of Fame rookie card? Because that's basically what the Beckett price guide outlined for me. Anybody whose career started before 1948, whose rookie card was earlier than that, I had no idea what the rookie card was. So my plan was to go after the post-war 48 and up rookies. So now, how am I going to do this on a not a huge salary, on a budget? So what I decided to do was I played around with some numbers and I came up with what I thought might work for me. And what I did was I would take the high side of the Beckett price guide. So let's just say, for example, at the time, a 51 Bowman Mickey Mantle rookie on the high side was $10,000, which is probably not accurate, but $10,000 for the Mickey Mantle on the high side. What I would do is I would look to spend no more than 10% of whatever the high column was for that card, for that rookie card. So in this case, I wouldn't spend more than $1,000 for a Mickey Mantle 51 Bowman rookie. So I did that for every single post-war Hall of Fame rookie card, and there was probably, I don't know, 150 or 125, whatever, something like that. So I did that. I got all the numbers. I added it all up. And again, now this is now, 20 years later. So I don't remember at all what it came out to. Let's say it came out to somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 to get all of them. So I set out and started my plan with that. And day one, 2004 winter, set out to local card shows. Now, fortunately, I was living in New Jersey in the tri-state area. So, the national once a year was not my only big card show. I had shows in White Plains, New York, the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, Hofstra University in New York, Long Island. The Philadelphia show came up 3 or 4 times a year. So I had many very large regional card shows. So finding these cards, pre-internet, and the internet did exist and eBay did exist, but it was very in the very early stages. So most of the stuff I picked up for this post-war Hall of Fame rookies group came from card shows that I was able to go to get to. So anyway, I started picking up these cards at shows. Every time I went to a show, whatever money I had available, I brought it. I picked up as many as I could, kept it down to 10% or less of the high Beckett column in the price guide for all the players. So as you can imagine, most of these cards, the condition I ended up buying them in were ones, sometimes authentic. But I tried to stay away from authentic, like any kind of altered cards bothered me. So typically, it would be a one would be the lowest, 1.5, two. Rarely would I get anything much above a two, because again, being on the budget was my primary concern, besides actually picking up the card. So I did that, and over the course of the next year, it took me roughly a year. I was able to finish and complete the post-war Hall of Fame rookie run for baseball. Again, the 125 or whatever the number was, number of players at that time. So I did that. I kept my budget for every single one below where I needed to be. It seemed to work out well for me financially. And so now I'm starting to formulate a plan, to go forward. Because I'm thinking, I want this to be kind of a lifetime collection, a lifetime search. So how am I going to continue this now? And again, I'm still on a budget. My salary hasn't changed a whole lot. So, how do I continue? How do I move forward? So, I decided the next part of the Hall of Fame, beside the players, I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start including managers now. So, I went out and there was, maybe a post war managers, maybe it was another 20 or 25 cards. So, I went out and fairly quickly I picked those up. That wasn't too much of a challenge either. And then after that, I started to look at, okay, well, I'm kind of got pretty much all the post war guys now. And every card I was picking up was generally the Topps rookie, the earlier ones, the Bowman rookie, if it was Bowman. Um, the only time I deviated from that was if there was another like a regional issue or a team issue, and it happened to be earlier than the Topps or the Bowman, I might go after that one. But otherwise, it was pretty much all the mainstream cards. So obviously, these are not very difficult to find, especially in me wanting them in almost any condition. Didn't really care too much about the grade. So one thing from the very beginning I forgot to mention was when I started this collection, it was very important to me to have every single item in the collection graded by one of the three major third-party graders at that time, which was PSA, SGC, and Beckett. They were really the only three trusted grading companies. So if I found something and it was not gradable because the size was too big, it didn't fit in the holder, they just didn't grade that particular issue, or whatever, I would look for something else. Every single thing in the collection had to be graded. Not that I was concerned about the number grade or the quality of it so much as just I wanted it in the holder, guaranteeing that it's authentic, and that was a big part of my collection, my search. So so now I've got the players, the managers post war. So now I've got to move forward. So now I'm starting to look at, okay, well, obviously there's many players like Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb and all, and the rookie cards, even though I didn't know what they were. I knew they had to come before 1948, obviously, along with all the other, 19th century guys. So I started to do research on just on the players and managers still at this point. So I started to research pre-war, and I'm now at this point. There's no Beckett price guide with RCs for pre-war rookies, so that's not going to be able to help me. Of course, internet is out there, and there's still, like I said, internet was at an earlier stage. There was no trading card database. There was no old cardboard website that had a Baseball Hall of Fame rookie card web page to go to. There was none of that. So I'm pretty much on my own trying to figure out, what's a Ty Cobb rookie, what's a Honus Wagner rookie. So I went out and somebody suggested to me, one of my collecting friends suggested, you should buy the vintage catalog of baseball cards. They started putting those out around 2000 and they were updating it every year. This was put out by Krause Publications, which was the parent company for Sports Collectors Digest, which at that time was the leading trade magazine if you wanted to buy and sell sports cards across the country. So I went out, I went on eBay, I found the vintage catalog, I ordered it, I got it in, and I started to look through it. And they have in the back, there's two ways where the index can apply. It can either be chronological or it could be alphabetical. So the alphabetical was okay, obviously everything's in order. But for me, being the rookie card collector and trying to search for what's the earliest card of everybody, the chronological index was more important to what I was trying to accomplish. So what I did, starting with the very earliest sets, like 1869, the Cincinnati Reds CDV Carta Vista, starting with the very earliest sets in the 1800s, and then working my way forward year by year. I started to look through set after set with my highlighter, and every time I came across the name of somebody who was in the Hall of Fame in that set, I would highlight it. And I did that all the way through up to 1948 with all the tobacco sets, the caramel sets, the bubblegum sets, the regional issues, every single set that's in there. I didn't care very much about the distribution. Was it a national distribution? Was it a regional distribution? I didn't really care. My objective was to identify what's going to be the earliest card of everybody in the Hall of Fame, and I was only concerned again about the Hall of Famers. So I went through and I highlighted, and this took me a long time. This probably went on for somewhere over a year because I was working a full-time job. So I would do this in the evenings. Sometimes I would get up at 6 in the morning and I would, spend an hour doing it. On the weekends, I would do it. So this probably took me the better part of a year, um, just to go through and highlight every set in there. I don't know how many sets there was. It was a lot. And eventually I got to the point where I had now some sort of a database. And the first time I came across the name of a player, first time being the earliest year in chronological order, the first time their name appeared, that was going to be the rookie card to me. And I would modify this a little bit down the road, but for the most part, that's what I was doing. So one by one, I went through every set. I identified all the Hall of Famers. Again, I put them on the spreadsheet in alphabetical order by name. And little by little, I started to piece together, this is the earliest card for Luke Appling. This is the earliest card for hey, Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Honus Wagner, and on and on and on. So eventually, after this, about a year or so worth of research, I have a pretty good idea. But while that was going on, though, Beckett had come out with a some sort of rookie card encyclopedia, and unfortunately, their version of it only included the really biggest mainstream sets for pre-war. So that was the T206, the Gaudi, the Sporting News, and Play Ball, and maybe a couple of others, but mostly that was it. So anyway, while I'm doing this, and I had already finished the post-war rookie collection, which was, like I said, mostly Topps and Bowman. So, I still want to collect. I still know I want to collect this, do this Hall of Fame rookie collection. So I went to my first national with this particular collection in mind. I had been to nationals before, but in 2004, the national happened to be in Atlantic City, which was my home state. So it was convenient for me to go. And at that point, I had committed to this rookie card collection for Hall of Famers. And I sold off all of my BGS 10s and PSA 10s. And the chunk of money I got from that, I brought with me in cash to the National in 2004. And I went around and basically picked up, what the Beckett guide had said, which was mostly Gaudis, T206s, a couple of Sporting News, a couple of play balls, for various Hall of Famers. And I probably came home with somewhere between 50 and 100 quote unquote rookie cards, according to the Beckett, guide for rookie cards. And I had that, and I started to look up values and different things like that. And everything I bought again was low grade based on the price guide. I was looking again to keep to like 10% or under of the high price guide column for near mint cards, including the pre-war. I had this followed the same concept. So I started picking these up over the course of that year that I was doing the research. Finally, I had the research done and I had a much better idea of what were actually true rookie cards out there now. So now this is more like we're getting in towards 2007 at this point. And I've got a bunch of Gaudis and T206s, and here and there, maybe I picked up an exhibit card and a few other things. So, um, so now I'm going to shows. Now I've got my list of what's the actual rookies. Now I'm looking for these. Obviously, some of these are much tougher to find and much more expensive than the Gaudis and the T206s that I was previously buying up. So I start doing that, and I start little by little here and there. I start for me as I did this collection. As I mentioned several times, the condition I was not concerned about. Most of the cards were going to be low grade because of budget. But what was important to me, every time I did a quote unquote upgrade to my collection by adding a better card of another player, the upgrade was not a condition upgrade. The upgrade was me getting something earlier than the card or the item that I had previously for that player. And since my budget was limited, I kept it to one item per Hall of Famer. So if I had a Gaudi Rogers Hornsby, and I came across, I realized that there was a 1916 big head strip card of Hornsby that was, really the rookie that was 17 years before the Gaudi. In order for me to buy that big head Hornsby strip card, I needed the money. I needed to sell the Gaudi Hornsby to get the money to buy the other card. Or, if I bought the other card first and I had the funds, saved up in savings or whatever, then I had to right away go ahead and sell the Hornsby Gaudi card because I didn't have cash to continue just buying and hoarding and stockpiling these cards. Basically, every single time I picked up something new, I had to sell the old version just to keep the budget on track. So, with that concept in mind, I started to move forward and started to pick up better rookie options for the pre war Hall of Famers, again, the players and the managers. I did that for about a year, and I was making pretty decent progress. Needless to say, prices back then were a lot less than what they are today. And so that takes us to around 2008 now. So, 2008 now, I'm starting to look at not just the players and the managers, but there's other Hall of Famers out there. There's umpires, there's executives and pioneers and Negro leaguers. So the same way I researched the others for pre-war a couple of years earlier, I got my vintage catalog out, which I now owned. and I started going through looking for the pioneers, executives, the exact same way I looked through for the others. I looked for those names and basically went through the whole thing again, and there was fewer of those, so it did not take me a year, but it took quite a long time. But eventually, I came up with a database of what the true rookie cards were for those Hall of Fame individuals, other than the players and managers. So then I started setting out to do the same thing, pick up those. If I found something earlier, once I already had one, I would sell off the one that I had, which was not the earliest, and keep the other one. Again, without regard to condition or any of that. So now we're like in the 2009 time frame, and sorry, just checking my notes here. I'm doing all this just off the cuff without any script or anything. I just want to make sure I don't miss any important things here. So now we're around 2009. I've got a pretty good idea of what the true rookie cards are for everybody. I've got a pretty good start on it. And I come in contact. I think I started a magazine subscription with Lyman Hardiman. Lyman is the founder of Old Cardboard, which was a magazine, hard copy magazine, going back to the early 2000s. I don't remember if it went back to the 90s. I think it started early 2000s. So Lyman, I reached out to him. I got my subscription up and running, and he also had a website, which was the best thing out there at the time for vintage baseball sets, and it covered just about everything from bakery sets, candy sets, strip cards, tobacco cards, postcards, anything you could think of. He had it all categorized. He had an image gallery for almost every set. He had complete checklists for every set. And it was a lot better than the standard catalog because he had pictures. The standard catalog just had an ongoing listing. So I reached out to Lyman. I got the subscription and all. I'm looking at his website and everything. And he put out a message on Net 54. Now at this point, 2009, I had joined Net 54, which is an online vintage baseball card forum group. I had joined there in about 2005, so I'm already a member there about 4 years now, and tons of good information. That's still a forum out there today. I still have a membership and have enjoyed it for the past 20 years. But anyway, Lyman had posted something on there. He's looking for articles, topics to do for his magazine coming up in future issues. And of course, now at this point, I've done tons of research on identifying the true rookie cards for everybody in the Baseball Hall of Fame. So I reached out to him and said, I'd love to do an article on that subject. And, so he said, great. Um, and I don't remember now if I initially came up with the idea or if it was his suggestion. But between the two of us, we decided it would be a good idea to maybe if we had this database, if we put a web page together, he would post it and put it out there on his oldcardboard.com website where he had all the other card sets and the images and everything. And so this way it would be a resource that collectors could go to if they want to look up a rookie card for Travis Jackson, who was one of the more obscure Hall of Famers. So we talked and we started to formulate a plan for how to come up with a database. We had to round up images. We ended up deciding to do a top 5 rookie cards because narrowing it down to one, a lot of times the player might have multiple rookie cards that all came out in the same year. So if we only did one, we've only got one option and we're leaving out others which are perfectly fine, appropriate, and we can't include them if there's only one. So we decided to go with 5, and we decided to do it on a broader scale. So not just true rookie cards, which I'm not going to get into in this video, the definition of a card and what constitutes a card, but we had a pretty broad definition of it. We included minor league cards for pre-war, such as the Z-Nuts, which were very popular in the Pacific Coast League. We included team issues, photos, oversized supplements that were way bigger than anything close to a standard card size. We included just about, it became almost like the five earliest collectibles of every Hall of Famer. So we decided we were going to go with that. We put them in chronological order. We did an alphabetical order, every single Hall of Famer. Lyman did the whole website technical part of it with his son, and I fed him all the images and all the information, and who to list and what sets to list and all that. So we put that together around 2009. So that's still today out there on his website. That's been about 16 years now, and I believe since then it's probably been the number one resource for collectors to go to who are trying to figure out for pre-war what's the best rookie card options, or what are the options out there. I'm on a budget. I can't afford a Sporting News Babe Ruth that's $200,000. So what are other options for Babe Ruth that would be in the rookie era type of collectibles? So anyway, so we put that out there. Shortly after that, I put together the magazine article, which is where our conversation had started, and that got included in an issue, I think, in 2010 or 2011, and covered a lot of the top popular Hall of Fame rookie cards in Major League Baseball. And so we had that relationship. That web page is still out there today. The magazine came to an end as people read everything online now. Very few people continue to get magazine subscriptions. So all old cardboard is strictly now an online resource. It does not put out magazines anymore. That kind of ended a number of years ago. So at this point now we're at 2010, 2011. And I'm at the point in this collection now where almost everything that I still need as far as earliest Hall of Famers is getting down to like the 19th, not only the 19th century, but I had most of the 19th century players and managers. The majority of them were old judges, the N172s. But now we're getting to like the executives, pioneers, and a lot of the Negro League guys. A lot of those cases, there was never a true card issued for some of the executive pioneer guys or the Negro League guys, occasionally an umpire as well. So now I had to start thinking of, okay, do I want to just exclude them and just say, well, there's no cards available? I really didn't want to do that. My ultimate plan was to have every single Hall of Famer. I wanted to have a rookie collectible, or as the earliest possible one I could afford if I couldn't afford the rookie. So now I start to broaden my horizons, and again, I still want everything graded. So it's still got to be able to get into a PSA, an SGC, or a Beckett holder. Um, so I still want to have everything graded. So I start to broaden, and for some of the tougher categories, like the executive pioneer, the Negro Leaguers, I start to look at and pick up original photos. PSA at this point had just very recently started their photo authentication program, and they had the Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, Type 4 system, the same as it is today. That had just been rolled out maybe within a year or two earlier. So that was a pretty good way to determine, what was original, what was later, production photos, things like that. So I got a lot of my stuff going forward from there. For the guys that didn't have cards, became photos. A lot of them became postcards, real photo postcards usually. And again, these are mainly the Negro League guys and the pioneer executives, especially the 19th century guys. So I start to piece those together. And again, on a budget, as I went along, I didn't really mention this as I'm moving forward with my timeline, but um, as I went along, as I moved forward, I constantly had to look for ways to save money, because some of these things that I have to pick up are going to be expensive, and some of them, the player, there may not be another option to pick up for them. So where I can, I need to save money. If there's two different options and one of them's $100 and the other one's $1,000, um, even though I might like the $1,000 item more, a lot of times I would sell off the $1,000 one pick up the $100 one, if assuming that it was not in a later issue, it was at least as early as the cheaper one. I would sell off the more expensive one, and then I got $900 now to put towards the next expensive thing where I don't have a choice. I'm going to need that money. So, and that went throughout the entire number of years that I was piecing together the collection up to this point now, 2011 or so. 2011, I ended up buying some Negro League pieces, a couple of Negro League pieces from Hake's Auction House. They were out of York, Pennsylvania. And the only way I even knew about them, they had put an advertisement in Sports Collectors Digest on the back cover of one issue in 2011. And they had gotten a big collection of memorabilia and cards from a former collector named Richard Merkin. And they were selling off this collection, and it included tons of Negro League material. And this stuff rarely ever came up for an auction, even in the biggest auction houses like Mastro, REA, and Heritage. So Hakes became a go-to place for me to try to pick up the Negro League pieces I needed to fill in the holes for all those guys that had no cards and all. So through that, I ended up making contact with them. We ended up starting a relationship, and starting around 2012, for the past more than 10 years now, I've been doing work for them on a consulting basis, and down from my home down here in Florida, where I am now. And working with Hakes enabled me to pick up some of the key Negro League pieces as I move forward. A lot of the other 19th century pieces I picked up mainly at auctions, because now this stuff that I'm looking for is so scarce and rare that you're really never going to find it at a card show, including the Nationals. I went to 10 straight Nationals from 2004 to 2014 when I was putting this collection together. And the last few years, I was strictly looking almost exclusively for Negro League material. And outside of one or two tables, which would be the tables I would spend the majority of my national at, nobody had anything, or almost nothing that I could use. Um, so so now we're at the point where now we're sort of like 2013, 2014. I've got, for the most part, I've completed all 310 players as of 2014. That was the number in the Hall of Fame. So not only players, but the other categories, like I said. So I've got a collectible, earliest possible collectible on, at least for my budget, for all 310 guys now. So during the course of 2014, other than maybe a slight upgrade or picking up something maybe a year earlier than what I had already for somebody, the collection was just about at a standstill. There was some rookies that I was never going to be able to get because either they were too rare, though some of them were one of a kind, or maybe only a couple. They were too expensive, or a lot of times it was both of those. They were too rare, and rarity made them too expensive. So the collection wasn't really evolving anymore. And I was, even though I had this great array of stuff, I was kind of getting bored, so to speak, with it. Nobody wants to just sit there and look at their same collection every day. I wanted to keep growing and collecting. So I made a decision in 2014 that the thing I enjoyed most and what I had really been researching the hardest at that point was the Negro League material. And thanks to the material that was coming through Hakes at the time, I was getting exposure to way more pieces than most other collectors would ever get a chance to even look at. So I made the decision I'm going to sell off the entire Baseball Hall of Fame rookie collection that I put together and take that money and buy top Negro League pieces. Pretty much including only stuff picturing Hall of Famers. So the Josh Gibsons, the Satchel Pages, the Oscar Charlestons, and Cool Papa Bell, stuff like that. And I was not going to just do autographs or bats or jerseys or anything. Everything strictly had to have a photo or an image of the player on it, whether it was a card, a postcard, a photograph. Negro Leagues had programs, scorecards, anything with an image I was good for. And the bigger name, the bigger Hall of Famers, even better. And the real premium pieces to me, the best of the best, was the images that contain multiple Negro League Hall of Famers on the same piece. Because as I went along doing this collection, one of the ways I was able to save money was if I came across a piece and it had three players on it in the Hall of Fame, and the piece predated their individual earliest item, which I had already. Now what I could do is I could sell off the I can buy that one piece, that one item, and I can then sell off three other items because the one with the three on it is earlier and therefore an upgrade to me as far as my collection. So now I've got money coming in from three other items and I only had to buy one. So that gave me excess funds to purchase and fund some of these other things that I needed as I moved along. So that's kind of how the collection started. That's how the collection ultimately reached a peak, and how the collection ultimately would get sold. And I would use those funds, like I said, to assemble a pretty comprehensive Negro League collection. It was not a lot of items. The rookie card collection was 310. The Negro League items at the peak of the collection, I believe, was still under 50 items, somewhere around 35 to 40 items before I sold that off. And somewhere down the road in the future, I'll do a video about the Negro League collection and how I pieced that all together. But stepping back for a minute, I called this collection, I did not call it the greatest Hall of Fame rookie collection ever. I did not call it the most valuable collection ever. I called it the most diverse Baseball Hall of Fame rookies collection. And diverse means that I had so many different types of collectibles within the collection. And that's really what enabled me to afford to put together 310 of the all time baseball greats on a somewhat limited budget. I had a decent salary. I was not, going poor or anything. But like I said, I was not making, I never made a six-figure salary during the time I was collecting this stuff. Did not own my own company or anything like that. So I had to do everything smart and save money, along every turn where I could, and then use that money to buy something I needed where I couldn't cut corners. Maybe there was only one item that existed for that Hall of Famer. So I needed to operate that way. What I'm going to do right now is just to address the most diverse part of the collection. I made a listing, and I might have left out one or two things. Just doing this all from memory. Unfortunately, I never documented the collection I had before I sold it, so I do not have images of everything that I had. I did publish a couple of books. A lot of the images from the various points in the collection, I do have those. And time to time on my videos, I've shown a couple here and there, different things. But I'm just going to read off a list here that I put together. These are all the different types of items that were part of the collection. So I'm going to start with some of the earlier ones. So we've got tobacco cards, candy cards, which includes the caramel, various candy cards, the gum cards, food issues. Most of those tended to be regional. Team issues, which included photo packs and team issued postcards, that kind of thing. Tops, obviously, Bowman. Pinbacks, we had several pinbacks. Pencil clips, these were little player images that you would put on top of a pencil. Original photos, like I said, Type 1 photos, PSA had started to authenticate those. Actual books or guides that were put out either by players or Hall of Famers. These are vintage. These are not like story books that were written later about players. This is like an actual book that was made and showed images of a playing days image of a player. Newspaper images. Broadsides were advertising for upcoming games. They were very popular with Negro League Baseball. Programs, scorecards, premiums. Premiums were typically the mail away stuff where you got an ad or coupon, let's say, in a sporting news newspaper, you mailed away and you got a M101-2 supplement. A lot of these, like I said, oversized items. Then you had supplements, which actually sometimes came within the publication. Police Gazette used to have supplements. That was an early 1900s, very large newspaper, and they would put supplements out. CDVs, which are carte de vistas. Those were photography format in the mid 1800s, before the cabinet cards, and later started to be produced. Next item, cabinet cards. That came in the later 1800s and then obviously into the 1900s. Woodcuts, those were, like the name implies, the newspaper would carve images into a block of wood and then use ink from a stamp pad and basically stamp the image of an individual player or team onto their newspaper. That was called a woodcut. That was popular back in the mid to late 1800s as well. Postcards, had a lot of postcards. Calendars with baseball player images, period calendars. Pendants were sometimes sort of like a pinback, but it might be like an ivory type of piece that you might be able to pin onto a shirt. Record albums, paper, the small, I think it was 45 RPM records. Some of those had albums similar to the 1964 Aurora Vision record albums. Some of these were actually just made out of paper, though. They were usually team issue. Minor league cards, college issued, or even high school issued cards. I think that's pretty much all the various types I had in the collection at some point. So that's what kind of led me to title this video the way I did it, the most diverse. And at one point, like I said, every one of these 310 players, there was at least one of those different items that I read off included in that 310 group. I was hoping to get some of the highlights of the collection, some specific items, and how I went about acquiring them. I was hoping to incorporate that into this video, but I see we're already just past 45 minutes now, so I'm going to cut the video off at this point. But I'll do some future, maybe a part two, and probably even more than that. I definitely want to cover some of the big name Hall of Fame rookies, how I went about the search for those, again on a budget. Also some of the most obscure items I picked up, some of the stories behind the items and how I picked them up, how I was able to make them affordable for me. And eventually, I may go at some point. I may do just a shorter videos and just go player by player, like the first piece I picked up for them in the collection, and then if anything changed during the course of my thinking as I pieced it all together, due to finances or other reasons, if anything ever changed and I upgraded that first piece to a different item. Sometimes I upgraded for the same player. I upgraded 4 or 5, even more times over the years. So I may at some point do every single one of the 310 Hall of Famers, just so you get a good idea of the thought process and how I went about accumulating everything. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my story, the journey I took in putting this collection together. It actually ended up being a 10-year collection. And when I started it, I thought it was more likely going to be a lifetime collection. But it sort of was, because that eventually branched off into the Negro League collection, which I would do for almost another decade. So, 20 plus years, having evolved from all the research and work that I did put into this Baseball Hall of Fame rookies collection. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one.